What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I host the only online broadcast in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And I am the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, wine, and travel. And I'd like to say, as always, you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Friday, June 18th, we are broadcasting live on the Morning Vibe. And if you don't know what the Morning Vibe is all about, twice a week, myself and my co-host, who is not here today, Ryan Oneil Knight, we host epic conversations, whether they're amongst ourselves or we invite people that you should know what they're doing, everything about, to the Morning Vibe platform. And been an interesting week, in a way, a lot of productive. Actually, yesterday, I was interviewed twice yesterday by a Canadian platform and also a US platform. And last night I hosted a conversation with Black fathers in the Durham region, which is a little bit east of Metro Toronto. Very powerful. And that comes into play in the conversation we're going to have today. And last Sunday, I hosted a conversation in highlighting World Sickle Cell Day, which is tomorrow. So if you go on the Dr. Vibe Show platform tomorrow, you'll see a replay of that great conversation. Certainly something you need to check out. But today we're going to, in lieu of this Sunday, Father's Day, we're going to be having a little conversation with, sounds like this gentleman's going to be a regular, Greg Frankson. We had him on a few weeks ago and he is back with us today. So Greg, good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great, man. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I am blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And what's it? Someone said something, Black wonderful. Someone used the term yesterday, and I went, I like that, Black wonderful. I like that. I want to big a shout out to our staunch supporter of the Morning Vibe, Christopher Lawrence. Hope all is fine with you, Chris. How's things been with you this week?
Oh, you mean me? Oh, you said
yeah,
Chris.
How's things? How's things? Yeah, I was going, Chris. I said, Chris. Sorry, Chris. Chris, hope things have been good. Greg, how are things with you this week? Got too many things going on. Good.
Yeah. Things are fantastic, man. I'm just doing what I'm doing with my business, and just making the steps to arrange the second vaccine shot for myself and the rest of my household. And otherwise preparing for the official arrival of summer next week.
Yes, which is a good and not so good thing. The good thing about it, that summer's officially here. The not so good thing is the days start getting shorter after that day.
Exactly.
So, and I guess it doesn't matter much today, because if you're in the greater Toronto area, we're getting a whole pile of rain this morning in Toronto. And they're saying we're going to get rain for most of the day, but who cares? Weather's worse somewhere else. So let's take what we can get, eh?
Absolutely.
Good. I wanted to have you chat with us today and our worldwide audience about Black fatherhood. And I know that you are a father. And I'd like to ask you first, when I give you the term Black fatherhood, what comes up in your mind and in your heart?
Oh, wow. Black fatherhood is a really, really complicated topic for me. I grew up without my dad in my life when I was a kid, and then I became a dad when I was older, and now I don't actually live with my children. They live with their mom. So I am, I'm a dad from distance, but then I also have the partial responsibility of helping my fiance, whose two children live with us 50% of the time. So there are just many different layers to it for me in terms of how I feel about it with the relationship that I have with my own father, because
Mhm.
we do have a relationship now,
Okay.
and a good one, and a positive one, and a strong one. But that was literally 20 to 30 years in the making. It took a very long time to get there. So it's partly that. It's partly, some of the difficulties that I've experienced, in my own personal fatherhood journey, with my daughters, and then of course it's just the interesting aspects of living in a blended family right now. So multifaceted, and then I also have strong opinions just about the historical treatment of Black men that has led to the difficulties, the complexities, and the sociological and psychological damages and challenges that are associated with Black fatherhood.
With what you just shared with us, we could spend 3 hours. You know that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I there's something I want to ask you. Well, there's many things. So I'm going to go high level. I'll save it for the back of my head and after we have this conversation. You mentioned, first things first, that you did not initially, or for many years, not have a good relationship with your father.
Mhm.
How was it for you at your younger age not to have a good relationship with your father?
Well, I think it's impacted my life in a number of ways. I definitely can see, in terms of my relationships with other men, my relationships with women, my relationships with children, my relationships with my children, my
Mhm.
relationships with my fiance's children. I can see how it's played out in all of those different ways, and on the way that I see conversations about Black fatherhood within the Black community. I don't always feel a strong level of attachment to many of those programs and initiatives, because I had no personal childhood experience of having a relationship with my dad. He was around, in terms of he was in the neighborhood. Like I knew he was alive. I knew where he lived, that kind of stuff. But he was not part of what was going on with me, for a lot of complex reasons on his side that I'm not going to get into, because that's his story.
Right.
Um, but once I was old enough to start having kids of my own, um, you really start to see how some of those earlier childhood traumas can play out, in those relationships, and in the relationships, with your partners. So I mean, like, my first child I had with my now ex-wife. My eldest is 21 years old and is a university student, and we've had a rocky up and down kind of relationship that has taken us through many dips and valleys, and those ongoing challenges are difficult to consider, difficult to think about. But I see how the trauma that I had from growing up without my father present has impacted the next generation, and it makes me sad, and it makes me angry. It makes me angry because I think that what my dad went through, he's playing a role. He's playing a particular role that society had assigned to him as a Black man. These ideas around machismo, and around the Black male hypersexualization that dates all the way back to slavery. The low expectations, in terms of vocational and professional low expectations. All of these different things. I mean, they all played a role for him, and ended up impacting on me. And and the way that I've gone through my own parenthood struggle has now impacted on my girls.
Right. Um, what what was the moment, or can you describe the moment when the relationship between you and your dad started to make the U turn?
It's a very clear moment. It's an extremely clear moment. It was a very clarifying moment in my life. So my father, when I went away to university when I was 18, right around that time, he ended up moving back home to Jamaica to take on a job there. He got an education degree, a Bachelor of Education degree, and became a vocational instructor. He was a welder by profession, and so he taught at a technical college in Jamaica for several years. Started a new family, and then eventually came back to Canada. I want to say about maybe 7 or 8 years ago now. And shortly after he was back, maybe a year or two after he had returned, he had a massive stroke that almost killed him. And when he had that stroke, and he was in a hospital in Mississauga, which is on the west side of Toronto, and I live on the east side of Toronto, just like Dr. Vibe does. And I drove across town and saw him in that hospital bed. And it was at that point where I realized that if he had died, I would have never had the opportunity to tell him about a bunch of things that had been running through my mind for many, many years. And so when he was well enough, as he was in recovery, we had that conversation where I told him all about, my experience of growing up without him, the all of the difficulties and stresses that resulted from that. Told him about my issues with my own fatherhood experience. But most importantly, I told him that I had forgiven him for what had happened when I was younger. And so that was the beginning of a fundamental shift in the way that we communicated.
The more you know, the more we need to know. Or that my motto is one of my mottos is the more you know, the more you need to know. You're going to probably laugh at this, but almost the exact similar thing happened to turn the relationship around with myself and my father. My father had suffered a heart attack. It's about 12, 13 years ago. And the morning of his operation, I wheeled him in on his gurney to his operating room. So myself and my mother sat in that waiting room for 4.5 hours. And all those things I was saying, I wish I would have told him this. I wish I would have told him that. That. There were some things that I wanted to say to him before he was gone. And I didn't know if I was going to get that opportunity.
Right.
And I've mentioned this story a number of times over the last few weeks because of Father's Day, and because I'm a fatherhood and manhood advocate, it comes up a lot, and it's part of my story. When that doctor came into the waiting room, my life froze. Because what that doctor was going to say in 5 seconds would change the rest of my life.
Right.
He said that he's going to be okay. I physically went over to the doctor, got on my knees, and hugged that doctor's leg for about 2 minutes. I asked the doctor if I could go in and see him. He said, yeah, you can. So I went in to see him. And of course, being an old Jamaican man who's a teacher, I said, how you doing, Dad? And the first thing he said was, I can feel my toes again. So all for probably a period of time, he knew something was wrong with him, but he was too proud or too afraid or had too much pride to share that he was having health challenges.
Right.
From that point on, I made it a commitment to turn the relationship around with my dad. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes a bad occurrence to turn out to good.
Right.
So when you share that story, I can 150% relate. And my dad and I are now at the point where my dad and I are each other's best friends. And I don't think I can have a better testimony of father-son relationship than that.
Right.
So huge story and fully relate. And, everyone has a story. So thanks for sharing that part of your journey with us this morning.
Yeah, no worries.
Great. How has the relationship with your father changed since that moment?
Well, it's been interesting because when he came back up from Jamaica, he came with his wife, and he had two more children. So I have a sister who's 21 years old, is literally like 2.5 months older than my eldest daughter. And then I have a 16-year-old brother who's just about a year older than my middle daughter.
Wow.
So
Pop-up family, eh?
yeah. So that's been interesting to step into a mentorship role for my younger siblings, especially for my sister Kelly, who is, getting towards the end of her studies, of her initial undergraduate degree, and looking at what she wants to do next. I'm of the opinion that she's going to become a nurse, and she will be an excellent one. She's a wonderful young woman who has a tremendous future. And I just feel so blessed that because my relationship with my father has improved to the point that it's improved to, that I now get to have a close relationship with my little sister and my little brother.
Right.
A young man who is actually an incredible beat producer and is creating music for me to use for my artistic projects. So it's just kind of an interesting full circle coming around. And my dad is, he's an interesting old guy.
Aren't most old Jamaican men?
I know, right?
I don't think there's not too many boring old Jamaican men.
True say, rolling into his 70s, and he's doing his thing. His health is still a bit of a concern, but his mind remains sharp, and he still tells his stories in his old slow, manner of speaking. You just when he's going to tell you a long story, you just settle in.
Yeah, you make sure you have something to drink. And
you don't know, brother. You don't know.
Yeah. What we're going to do, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll be back in a moment. And in the second half of our conversation this morning, we'll just talk to Greg about some of the challenges that he sees Black fathers are facing these days. And even though Greg and I are based in Canada, I have a feeling that what he shares is pretty universal. When it comes to Black fatherhood. So we're on the Morning Vibe live June 18th. Myself and Greg Frankson, we're talking about a Black fatherhood. Ryan Knight cannot be with us today, but he'll be back with us on Monday, and we'll be back in just a moment. Hold tight. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here. What is up, everybody? It is Dr. Vibe here.
Just had an awesome experience. He is a really good interviewer.
The conversations that we have and the passion that he has for people and helping people.
So smoothly that you would have thought that we had known each other for years.
Big shout out to Dr. Vibes. I had the opportunity, the pleasure, and the privilege to join him last evening.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And you can check out more great content like this on my website. Also follow me on social media. Remember, it's Dr. Vibe, the home of epic conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations. And remember, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect, and remember to give yourself grace. We are back with Greg Frankson on the Morning Vibe, June 18th. We're having a nice little conversation about Black fatherhood. And before we went to our break, I had mentioned we're going to focus on the second half of our conversation about some of the challenges of Black fathers today. So, Greg, what are some of those challenges you see that Black fathers are challenged with today?
Well, I mean, let's start with the most immediate issue, and that's the COVID-19 pandemic. We've seen that, the public health impacts have been most heavily felt in communities of color. So that will have some impact on certain Black fathers who may have contracted the virus themselves and had some less than ideal outcomes. But beyond that, there's a broader socio-cultural and economic impact that the pandemic has had. Simply to say that many Black fathers, as a result of the general socio-political situation of Black folks in Canada, find themselves on the lower ends of the employment scale, meaning that they're situated in more precarious work, more wage work that is, has been classified essential, placing themselves at greater risk with contracting the virus, and also at greater risk of ending up out of work because, workplaces have been, shut down, shifted, out of business because of a lack of clientele, all these other kinds of shifting impacts. And so now we've got to provide an opportunity for these folks to get themselves retrained and reskilled and resituated into proper employment so that they can sustain themselves and take care of their financial responsibilities. And speaking about the words responsibilities, then that takes me into the family law system. Some of the challenges, right? So some of the challenges that Black fathers face there, I've had my own set of situations and interactions with the Ontario family law system that have left me dissatisfied, angered, absolutely devastated. Has led to really negative impacts on my relationships with my daughters. Has made it abundantly clear to me that our family law system is highly racist towards Black men and highly biased towards men more generally. And we've got a lot of work to do in order to get to a system that defaults to the equitable treatment of men and women in the upbringing and other responsibilities associated with their children, rather than defaulting to, whoever house that kid lives in is therefore the owner, quote unquote, of that child's responsibility, and the other person has to pay homage at that doorstep. And in those cases, it's overwhelmingly the women who tend to be the ones who have the custodial first right over those children. And it's leading to devastation across the province, across the country, across the continent. Because I don't think it's all that different. In fact, it's probably worse south of the border than some of the situations that I've personally witnessed. That's devastating. And then of course, we've got other issues in terms of just the psychological and mental health challenges that Black men face generally. Which, of course, if Black men are struggling with their mental health, then that's going to also have impacts on their relationships, all of their relationships, not just the ones with their children. And so we need to take a look at how do we find ways and systems that are going to identify and support Black men who are dealing with depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and some of the other associated mental health disorders or conditions that are leading to negative impacts and outcomes for Black men in this society, that shows up in their relationships, in their employment situations, and in the ways that they interact with society more generally. So those are just a couple of starting points.
Thank you for sharing that. In one of your beginning comments, you were talking about the interpretation of, or how the community is responding to this issue. And correct me if I'm wrong, you had some concerns of some of the community responses or how they address Black fathers, Black males. Could you expand a little bit on that?
I think part of the issue is that we've got some programs, not all, some approaches, not all, some viewpoints, not all, that have created an idealized version of what Black fatherhood is supposed to look like, and set up a paradigm by which, if you as a Black father are not corresponding to this particular idealized view of what Black fatherhood should be, then you need to get your stuff together and get in line with the idealized version and make those steps immediately in order to be taken seriously as a Black man in our community. And that might not be a message that people are intending to send, but it is certainly one that I have seen interpreted in that fashion. And so we need to take a look at when we talk about Black fatherhood, it is a highly complex issue. We're not just, and and we're also talking about some of the internal biases within the community that are biased against Black fathers who have their children with women who are not Black. And then there's a whole other layer of of ethnic and racial discrimination from within the Black community laid upon those Black fathers for the choices that they have made in their personal lives, and therefore labeling their particular experiences of fatherhood as being outside of the norm, outside of the idealized version of what Black fatherhood in the Black community should look like, and therefore made to feel like they need to pay a price in order to find admittance and acceptance within the paradigm of Black fatherhood within the Black community itself.
Do you feel, after what you just said, do you feel that there's as much work that needs to be done within the Black environment about this subject as outside this in the non-Black environment? Because it sounds like there's a lot of work from what you're sharing that needs to be done within the Black environment amongst Blacks when it comes to this subject.
I think that the Black community needs to reshape the way that it views Black fatherhood. This is my personal viewpoint, based upon my own experience and observations. Yeah. I think that it's wonderful that we have these conversations, that we've got organizations, full not-for-profit organizations, that are looking at helping Black men to pursue fatherhood with with joy, with commitment, with a commitment, with responsibility, etc. But I think we need to start from the position that if you are Black and you are a man and you have children, you are a Black father. The rest of the circumstances don't matter in terms of you fitting that particular basic definition. So what are we going to do to help you, no matter your personal situation, to feel more comfortable, to feel more confident, to feel more empowered, to feel more beneficial to your children as a Black father, period. And until all of our Black organizations, until all of our Black paradigms within our community are able to shift to that basic, fundamental starting point, I feel like we're going to continue to have, stresses and frictions and inequities of treatment within the Black community that is directed towards Black fathers, which ultimately is going to disadvantage their children. Mm-hmm. It's not even so much about the men themselves, although of course their feelings of self-worth are very important, and so we shouldn't be doing anything to make them feel maligned in that way. But it is ultimately, as with everything that has to do with parenthood, if we do things wrong, ultimately it's the kids who pay the biggest
exactly
cost.
Yeah, I think the better well, for myself, I look at it this way. This is just my opinion, that a lot of organizations that are trying to help the Black father don't look at he's a Black man first.
Right.
So if you don't help the man, you're not going to be able to help him be a better father. And a lot of people are just looking at the fatherhood lens, which is no problem with that. But you got, for the father to be better, and this is just me, you got to help the man be better.
Right.
Just a thought. And at least in what I know, and I don't know everything, there still is not a consistent effort and focus to help Black men and Black fathers. And I know there's organizations that are doing good work out there, and it is a little bit of a challenge to get it going, but there are ways. I know ways that it can be done, but it just seems, and what my concern is after Father's Day, what next? Where's the consistent programming? We need, and I'm involved in this space, so I know, and I help fathers all around the world. We need to ask Black fathers, what do you need help with? Mm-hmm. Instead of telling them what they need to be, we need to have them come to us. It'll be father-driven instead of organization-driven.
Absolutely. We have to start with inquiry, not with inquisition, right? Yeah. We were not putting Black men on trial for their struggles or their challenges that are associated with their fatherhood. What we should be doing is trying to draw out of them what it is that they require in order for themselves personally, for their families, and for the community more generally, to extract from the situations, put together and build together to improve that situation so that their children feel that they're being loved, nurtured, and supported by their father. Their father feels like they're being loved, nurtured, and supported by the community, and everyone is improving together.
Absolutely. Before we end our conversation today, because we could go on for hours, what is the message you have out there for the Black environment and also Black fathers going forward? What are your call to actions?
We need to do a couple of things, I think, as a community. Number one, we need to value the man in the Black father, as you've alluded to, and make sure that we are placing that paramount, no matter his personal circumstances, his partnerships, his current or previous entanglements, etc. Learn to love the man for who and what he is, as opposed to where and when he has been certain places. Number one. Number two, I think that the Black community has a role to play in combating the gender and racial discrimination within the legal system, with respect to family responsibility. That we can all band together in order to affect a positive change in how Black men are treated by the family law systems of North America. Because ultimately, if we are able to provide that empowerment, then those relationships that those men are having that are being interrupted by conflictual relations with the mothers on the other side of the conflict, those situations can be better managed and mediated for the betterment of the children involved. And thirdly, I think in that process of valuing, first of all, that the man and the Black father, and valuing the Black father in our systems that are meant to help manage the relationships, we also need to, beyond that, help to ensure that Black fathers have the opportunities and the space to be able to pursue the various aspects of their professional and vocational interests, so that they can contribute positively and free from bias and discrimination within the workplace and the marketplace of ideas, so that their children can be raised by fathers who can tell them with all of the confidence in the world that they too have the opportunity to create something incredible for themselves and for the children that they too will eventually have.
Wonderful. Okay. You covered the community and the dads. Fantastic stuff this morning, Greg. For those who want to touch base with Greg, there is his email address right there, greg@voicesharing.com. What do you have planned for Father's Day?
I'm going to spend some time here in the house. I'm going to be on the horn with my kids, just letting them know what's going on. And yeah, we're going to take it from there. I just want to say, Vibe, you misspelled my email. It's Voice Share Inc. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I can change that right now.
Yeah.
So let me do that right now.
Yeah.
So we can update that in real time. VoiceShareInc.com.
That's right.
So share Inc.
Yeah. And I also want to, while you fix that, I also want to send a shout out to those folks who are going to check out this video. And I want to, cover and spread love and embrace and show respect to those folks whose fathers are no longer with us.
Absolutely.
And say to them that we encourage and support you as you celebrate the memories of your fathers, no matter their impact or relationship with you, and wish you the very best this weekend, as we roll through what can be a very difficult time for those who have lost their fathers or have no relationship with them.
That's a huge point, and thanks for adding that in, because one of the things they say is that every man has a father. The question is, where is that father?
Right.
So thank you. Very well put, and appreciate you. And we will certainly have you back. Thanks very much. And you have a fantastic weekend, and a fantastic day, and a fantastic Father's Day weekend.
Will do, good sir. Thank you very much for having me once again.
The pleasure is mine. All right. The morning vibe. on June 18th in rainy Toronto today, and another great conversation. And I'd like to thank everyone who caught the conversation live or on the replay. Let me just put Greg's email away. And my apologies to Greg for getting his email address incorrect, but we corrected it on the fly. So we're going to be back on Monday. Want to shout out to all the fathers out there, and all the men that are not biological fathers who are caring. Because, and also here's another thing, there are fathers out there that are taking care of people who are older men. So there's many different definitions of fatherhood. It doesn't have to be biological. There could be you serving and helping other men. Every guy is a father to somebody, even if it's for a few seconds. So we want to shout out to everyone this weekend. For myself, this weekend going to be, I think, I'm hosting a Fatherhood Summit tomorrow. So if you check my social media, how I'm going to be hosting it here from Toronto, but all the other fathers are from the United States. So looking forward to that. I'm planning to host a fatherhood conversation on Sunday. Got to see if I can recruit some dads. I don't want to take them away from that day on my Black Canada Talking platform. And then I'm being interviewed on a show called Let's Talk Sunday evening at 7 p.m. So just keep a watch on me via social media. And if you want to touch base with me, the best place to do it is on the website, thedrvibeshow.com. As always, I close out with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourselves grace. And I really want to emphasize these days, give yourselves grace. We'll see you on Monday morning. Myself, Ryan, God bless, peace to all, and keep the faith.